Welcome back to Solo Adventures. My name is Livy, and I'm here yet again with another Solitaire BGG PnP contest game review. So today the game we're going to be looking at is Impetus. No One Gets Left Behind. Impetus is a colorful programming game about attempting to guide cute little mushroom creatures through a dark cave and escape an evil claw monster. As usual, if you're not actually interested in watching me play this game and you would rather just hear my final thoughts, then please feel free to skip to the end. Otherwise, let's venture forth. So this game has kind of an involved setup. I did not do that on camera though, because as you can see, it's really hard to just fit everything so that you can see it within the frame. So I will just explain what I did, basically. So in order to set up this game, there's going to be 3 sets of little tiles, and they're level 1, level 2, and level 3. And you shuffle each of these decks separately. Then you lay out 4 level 1 tiles in a row, and then 4 level 2s, and then 4 level 3s. Here we have the Evil Ink Stain starting tile, and here we have the cave exit. So the object of this game is to guide all of these little mushrooms out of the cave. And we are, this character here, this big pawn, we are Celestial, the Prince of Light. So after you get all of your tiles laid out, then you want to shuffle up these fluorescence cards, which are these little ones here that have colors here, very helpfully marked with symbols to help people who are colorblind. And you shuffle them up and randomly assign them to each of the tiles along the way. These black ones are colorless. So you want to make sure that you have at least 1 tile of every color represented somewhere in this cave. Here we have the Mushroom's Heart card with the evil ink cubes all set up. We have 3 Pure Heart tokens set on the Prince's card, and we have his special ability marker set at 0. This will go up as we defeat evil ink cubes. Now here is the action line, and these are the cards that we will take action on to help move these figures around. So there are 6 mushrooms and each of them has a color. It can be a little bit hard to see from the top down, so I'm gonna lay them down whenever I remember to. Not an easy feat, but I'll do my best. And these mushrooms will be attempting to escape from the evil ink claw, which I made into a neat little standee. So in this game, you can also set it up so that there are some bad events that will pop up from time to time in the game. I'm just going to be playing the easy variant of this because this game is hard enough as it is, and I don't need these extra bad events. So, as usual, I think the best way to teach you how to play this game is to begin. So, we have our big deck of light cards, and they are full of shapes and colors and things like that. And we will be drawing from this deck every turn to get our hand. And we'll be basically programming the mushroom and the ink claw movements with these cards. So, on your turn, you draw 6 cards. Alright, we have 6 cards, and we have a lot of pink, and 1 celestial card. So this is basically a wild card. I can use it for any color or any shape that I want. For the rest of these, I have to assign 1 card to each of these face-up cards on the action line, and they will move to the nearest color or shape depending on which one I choose. So we're going to be trying to guide all of the little mushrooms out to the end of the cave without coming into contact with this claw or with any of the evil ink cubes that are left around the cave. So first off, we also have to move the prince, but we can move him either before or after the mushrooms take their actions. So I think... So I'm putting this pink star over the ink action card, and that means that I'm going to be placing an ink cube on every square that has a pink or has a star. I'm going to decide that this wild card is a sunburst. The green mushroom will move to the nearest red card. If you position it here below, that means that it's moving to the color, and if you position it above, it is moving to the next shape. But you also have to keep in mind that this takes into account the colors of the other mushrooms. So actually, I guess I can't do that because the green is close to the red mushroom, so that isn't going to be possible. He won't move otherwise. And I'll just have him move to the nearest hexagon. Then yellow will move to the nearest red. Red will move to the nearest pink. Orange will move to the nearest heart. This albino mushroom can be any color mushroom I want. So I'm going to have the prince move first, and he's going to move to the nearest sunburst. And we just discard this card. If this deck becomes empty, then we lose. Then we have the ink claw, pink and 5 pointed stars. Now, the prince has a special magical aura about him that defeats ink cubes that are within one adjacent square of where he is. So this cube actually can't stay here. It cannot withstand the goodness of our prince and is defeated. So that means that our prince now has 1 ability point, and the cube goes back to the storage. So green will move to the nearest hexagon. Yellow will move to the nearest red, which is right here. Red will move to the nearest pink, which is also right here. And let's say the orange mushroom will move to the nearest heart. And the claw advances 1 step. Okay, so next round, we need to refresh the action line. So this now gets refreshed. We turn that over, scoot these down. Okay. So we of course have to keep the mushrooms and the prince away from the ink claw. If the mushrooms come into contact with the ink or the ink claw, they are going to be corrupted. And if the little mushrooms are on the same square as the ink claw directly, then they just die and you lose. But if they come into contact with an ink cube, then they are corrupted, and if they are corrupted twice, then they also die and you lose. Now the movement of the prince is a little different. His movement is not based upon the color of the mushrooms, it's only on the color or shapes on the tiles, and he can move either forward or backward. So now I want to try to get my prince to this spot to hopefully defeat this ink cube, because these mushrooms can't pass otherwise. I'm not very lucky, so I'm just going to have the prince move to the nearest star, I guess. I'll have green also move to the nearest star. Yellow will move to the nearest starburst. Rather, let's have yellow move to the nearest cyan color, which is, in this case, the prince. Red will move to the nearest purple. Purple will move to the nearest pink, and the ink claw will put ink cubes on pink starbursts. So the prince goes first, he moves 1. And we always have to resolve from left to right. So green will go to the nearest star, which is here. Yellow goes to the nearest cyan. Red goes to the nearest purple, which is just here. Purple goes to the nearest pink, which is also there. And the claw drops an ink cube on pinks and starbursts. We already have a cube here, so we don't get another one. All right, and we refresh. And the action deck is always face up so we can see what's coming next. So I really need the prince to take out this cube here. He can't pass through without getting stained himself, and in that case he will take damage. What can we do? I think I'm just going to let him take damage this one time because I think that we really need to clear this out. So he'll move to the nearest circle. If you hear some noise in the background, don't mind that. That is my wonderful husband helping me out with some chores around the house while I am busy playtesting all of these games. So I'm going to have yellow move to the nearest diamond. Red is going to go to the nearest plus shape, which is all the way over here. No, let's have red go to the nearest orange. Now, we could move orange twice this turn if we wanted, because this albino mushroom can be for any mushroom. We'll have purple go to the nearest green. The ink claw will drop on yellow plus signs. And purple will go to wherever the prince is. Or to the nearest cyan, rather. So prince goes to the nearest circle. Oop, nope. Yes, yep. And he takes damage, so he wouldn't be able to move any farther than this turn anyhow. He does get to keep this, though, as a point. But he does lose 1 health. If he loses all 3, we also lose the game. Yellow moves to the nearest diamond. Red moves to the nearest orange. I forget who I said that would be, but I'll say it was... I guess I will have yellow move to the nearest green, which is backward. Ink claw drops on yellow plus signs. So a lot of ink. And hopefully you can see the mushrooms a little better. My apologies for forgetting to lay them down for you. And purple will go to the nearest cyan. Which means that it will have to pass through an ink spot, and that means that purple is corrupted, or stained, rather. So if purple takes any more damage, then we lose. Ink claw advances 1, and we continue. We refresh. So the prince will move to the nearest hexagon. Red will move to the nearest yellow. Red will move to the nearest red. Ink claw will drop on green stars. Purple will go to the nearest star. And orange will go to the nearest yellow. So I'll move the prince first. Goes to the hexagon. And red goes to the nearest yellow. Orange goes to the nearest red. Ink lands on green stars. So we have green, and we would have a star here, but it cannot because the prince has his aura of purity, so we get an extra point, and that doesn't land. And that's that. Purple goes to the nearest star. Which is thankfully here and not here. And orange goes to the nearest yellow. So we're all kind of crowded up here. And the ink cloud advances. This card's over here. Here we go. When we reach the end of the action deck, we just flip the deck back up and we don't shuffle it, and we put it here again. Yay, we have a celestial card. And this can be any color, any shape we want. And I think we could also put it on the evil ink if we wanted. Say pink goes to the nearest circle. Put the evil ink on orange. No. Evil ink will go on pink plus signs. Purple will go to the nearest circle. Orange will go to the nearest hexagon. Evil ink will land on orange hearts. And the prince will go to the nearest... What did I say that was? Pink. Yes, nearest pink. Or rather, this is purple. So... here still. Pink goes to the nearest circle. Over here. Ink is on... Ooh, I miscalculated. Pink plus signs. So here we have a pink, and we have the prince on the same square as the mushroom. So that means that the prince will take damage instead of the mushroom. So he jumps in the way and takes the corruption himself. We get an additional point for abilities, but we also lose one more health. Purple will go to the nearest circle. And orange to the nearest hexagon. And we'll say the evil ink goes to orange hearts. And these are both defeated because of the prince's aura. Now he has 6 points, so I'll show you how he can use his special ability soon. But first we have to advance. And we just start the whole action line again. So we have 2 celestial cards this turn. That's pretty lucky. I mean, we only have 5 in the whole deck, which by the way is getting a little slim. Oh, we forgot to advance the ink. have the prince go to the nearest cyan. Ink will drop on yellow plus signs. Purple moves to the nearest orange. Orange will go to a diamond. Ink will do green sunbursts. And pink will go to the nearest red. So the prince will use his special ability, and he shoots an arrow of light, which will basically clear away the inky corruption wherever it lands. It's kind of like another prince, but it can't move. So this ends up here, and we get 2 more points back. Prince will move to the nearest cyan. The ink will drop on yellow plus signs. Purple moves to orange. Orange moves to the nearest diamond. Evil ink drops on green sunbursts. Oops. So the ink corrupts these 2 mushrooms now. Or rather, I think I can choose which one it corrupts. So I'll say it corrupts orange. And pink will move to the nearest diamond. Oh, this doesn't exist, I guess. And that either. There. And we'll advance. Oh, that also shouldn't be there. Could have prince go to the nearest yellow. Oh, we forgot to move the ink claw. He lands here, and then we would flip this over, but that doesn't make a difference now. Purple will move to the nearest cyan. Orange will move to the nearest cyan. Ink will drop on orange hearts. Pink will go to the nearest hexagon. And ink will drop on purple pluses. Oop, I completely forgot there's a yellow here. I only saw this one there, so that was my mistake, and I think that is going to screw up our plan considerably. Okay. Purple moves to cyan. Orange moves to cyan. Ink drops on orange hearts. What did I say this one was? Pink, I think moves to yellow is what I said. Oh, no, not yellow. It was above, so that means it was a shape. Let's say it's nearest diamond. I think it's wild, so I think we can change it either way. I'm not sure. And ink drops on purple pluses. And that spells the end of our prince, because he just took his last damage and the prince is now corrupted and all of the cave will be consumed by evil. So yeah, I don't feel very clever. That was not a very good playthrough. But yeah, let's go into some final thoughts. What do I think about this game? So that was Impetus. Let's talk about it a little bit. So as usual, we are going to start with the build. Now, Impetus is a game that will take you a while to build. It has a lot of components. It has a rather large stack of kind of poker-sized cards. It has a smaller stack of little half-size cards. It has multiple little mini decks of square tiles. And then, of course, it has all of the standees and the little tokens and things like that. So Impetus might take you a decent amount of time to build, particularly if you want to make it look really nice. Nothing about it, however, was particularly difficult, so, I mean, as long as you have time, you can do it. So I've had to make this game practically twice, or at least the main Spark cards, because the first time I printed it out, the files weren't set up for duplex properly, and so the fronts and the backs were mixed and matched up with the wrong cards. Thankfully the designer fixed that and everything was okay afterward, but I did have to remake these cards. If you have an old file of this PnP that you downloaded, you really should go and download the newest one because now all the issues are fixed. One point that I have on the construction of this game is that the cards themselves could have been laid out a little bit better for printing. And I think that perhaps the designer is new, and I totally understand this. I mean, if you don't do a lot of physical printing and playing, you might not know this. But generally, it's best to have cut lines on only one side of the cards. And ideally, it's best if you don't really have cut lines per se, but rather like little marks, little like X's or crosses where you can cut out with a sharp blade. Most people, myself included, cut out the cards from the back to make sure that all of the backs match up, but of course our printers are not perfect, and so even if we have a really decent duplex printer, the front side of the cards will not perfectly match up with the back, and that is why it's better to not have cut lines on the other side, because they're just not necessary, and they oftentimes make the final product look a bit messy and amateur. Not really a huge deal, but I am a little bit weird about trying to make my PnP games beautiful. I know it's no secret that I love bright colors. I especially love fluorescent colors, and so this game is my aesthetic. I love how this game looks. I love these bright glowing mushroom creatures, and I love how our characters pop out of the darkness of the cave, how you can kind of imagine these phosphorescent mushrooms and this Prince of Light kind of shedding their little halos of light along the way, guiding each other through the darkness and the danger. The mushrooms are so cute. I love the artwork on the cards. The standees are plain and functional and kind of cute in their own way. They sort of look like Mario mushrooms, but just solid colors. What I would have really liked is if the standees were actually little pictures of the characters. So if instead of just like the generic pink mushroom outline, we actually had the little pink mushroom character, I would have preferred that, but this is a prototype, of course, and it's not really a huge deal. I think a lot of people might substitute the standees for other things like tokens or pawns, but I actually really like the size difference between the prince pawn and the mushroom pawns. You can really get a feel of how small the little mushrooms are and how tall the prince is in comparison. I know that the art style might be, placeholder, or maybe the designer would have planned to do something a little bit more over time, but I really like the art even as it is right now. I really get the vibe that the designer is aiming at, and I think that this game would look really gorgeous, like if it was published by, a company like Fantasy Flight or something. How cool would it look if the cave tiles, had kind of a stone texture and the symbols in it were sort of glowing glyphs? I think that would be neat. And by the way, if you are colorblind, that's no problem playing this game because all of the cards have little symbols that'll help match up the cards to the colors. This might be important for you in particular if you have a hard time with the purple, which to me looks more like magenta, and the pink. So the colors are a little bit similar. I don't know if it's just my printer, but I would have liked it if the purple mushroom was just a little bit more purple. Now, I like magenta, but really purple and really pink would have given these two mushrooms a more distinctive look, and it would have been easier to distinguish them. So aside from how this game looks, which is great, how does it play? Now, I know that I've said this many times in this contest so far, but this game is something unusual. I have never played a programming game before. I actually don't really know of any others. I mean, it could be that I'm just ignorant and I've just never come across this genre, but for me, this style of game is fresh and new. I also think that it works extremely well with the theme. You get the feeling that the little mushroom creatures are innocent, naive, they take everything very literally, and so therefore if you order them to move to the space with the heart, even if there's an ink cube on it, they still will do it just because they do everything you say. You have to plan ahead, and you have to think about how things will happen in sequence. And I really like that. I like how this game will never be the same twice. You have the tiles that you can mix up, and you of course have the spark cards that are also random, and the fluorescence cards, which are also random. So the puzzle will be different every time you play this game. And that's cool. As it is, I feel like the game is really hard. Now, I did a little bit better playing this game in my earlier playtesting because I can really spend some time agonizing over my decisions, and when I was playing for the camera, I didn't want to have too much analysis paralysis, but this game is a bit brain-burny. The rules are relatively simple, but you really do need to think ahead, and you really do need to consider what the best choice is for every move. If the game is too easy for you, however, you can of course use the various event cards mixed in. To me that sounds crazy because I've never come close to winning this game even on easy mode, but I can imagine that the event cards would really throw a wrench into things and really spice it up and add that level of challenge. I like how the prince has special abilities that he can use over time, how you actually have an incentive for beating off the ink cubes other than just, of course, preventing them from staining your mushrooms. I really like the mechanic of being able to shoot the magical arrow of light, which will serve as a beacon that also erases the ink around it. And I really like this image of a magical arrow illuminating part of a cavern. I don't know why exactly we are helping out these little mushrooms, but I definitely find them adorable. I think it's extremely cute that they apparently are not able to distinguish different things as long as they have the same color, so a red square or a red comrade is all the same to them, and they'll be just drawn to the nearest thing that is that color. You really do feel like you are a mother duck trying to round up all of her confused little ducklings and get them over onto the safe side of the road. I really appreciate how the designer went to the trouble of making actual standees for this game. I think it would have been much easier to just tell us to use a token or a pawn, but the designer went through all of the trouble of actually making a little ink claw figure and making the little mushrooms. It's little touches like this that really help bring a game to life for me. If I was to make maybe one suggestion though, I would maybe consider renaming the ink cubes, because even in the instructions we are defeating ink cubes, and this kind of paints a picture in my mind of like a D&D acid cube. I don't know if it is literally supposed to be a cube of ink, but maybe if it was supposed to be like ink splotches or little ink critters or something like that, it might help from a sort of flavor and theme sort of perspective to rename them into like... We can't pick Inklings because Nintendo already has that for Splatoon. Something like that, or like little ink monsters or ink imps or something. I can imagine that this game could become even more complicated. I could imagine maybe having different characters, or maybe having a longer game with a longer board and making it multiplayer. Maybe there's two princes that have two slightly different powers. I can imagine maybe different tiles, or maybe other secondary smaller enemies that will somehow move around the map. I feel like there's a lot of possibility here, but even without the added complication, the game is very good even in its simplicity. So would I recommend that you play this game? Well, yes, actually, I really like it. If you like puzzles, if you like having a little bit of brain burn, and if you really like the cute and colorful aesthetic, then I think Impetus is a good game and a good time. And even though it'll be a bit of a drain on your printer, I think it's still probably worth the effort. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you like, you could support me on Patreon. I also have an Amazon wishlist posted below that's filled with PnP type supplies and other things that I want to get for this channel, so if you'd rather help me out more directly that way, you can do that as well. You can also check out the Facebook page for all things solo gaming. So until next time, stay adventurous.